welcome to Zion's Banner. I hope everything kind of fits in this evening as we kind of jump right into it. And we got one of the moderators in the room. Excellent. So I'm really excited to have people here. I'm going to stick a link in because I'm now an affiliate with Logos Bible Software. So I'm going to try sticking that in there. And that isn't it. Okay, well, we'll do that next time. But I want to start doing that, letting you know. And I will actually go back and stick the link in the description with a little thing. If you use Logos Bible Software, I'll just let you know what they're up to. And so I'm kind of excited about that because I use Logos Bible Software all the time. And it's a good tool. Now, it can be pricey, but you will get incredible resources. And what I really love is that it's very citable. And so when I use Logos Bible Software, actually the citation ends up in the slide. Very useful for academics or paying attention to where you got information. So I wanted to let you know about that. I also did not give you the resource last night because we got into quite a discussion. But I've gone back and I put the resource for Paul Coupon's book, Is God a Moral Monster? And so that resource is available to you. So check the descriptions. I've got a little work to do on the descriptions tonight, but check the descriptions out because I'm going to be putting resources and things in, and then in public comments, I'll do that also. Because, well, I don't have the whole backpack thing perfectly, but I want to make resources available. So if you're looking for a birthday gift, basic logos package can be a very nice thing, or additional books if you already own it. And so that's kind of neat. And then maybe if I actually earn a few freebies, we can end up having a contest or two, or I can make a freebie available. I know that Vocab's been able to do that, and I can't yet, but wanted to let you know about some upcoming things. So I'm going to go ahead and stick this in. We have the upcoming Muslim conference, and so I thought I'd show you what that looks like. I'm excited about it, and I know that most of you are not in the area, but still, all in all, if you are in the area of California, the Strong Tower Conference I will actually be speaking at also, and that's in September in California. So if California is closer to you, that works out great. Let me play this little clip for you and see how it sounds. And it's a good test just to kind of see where things are at. Can do on that link to the conference. I'll pull up the actual PDF. and I will put that information up by pulling up the PDF at the end, and I will put the PDF in the talk line, or I will put it in the public section of this video. So if you're interested, I will put a public comment with a PDF number, contact information in the actual public comment. I can actually make those. And then just go back, look at the video, and the public comment should be there. And so that'll actually work. But I am glad to see some new people in the room. I'm gonna let the Blue Wrench handle stuff, because I know Nate is an excellent moderator, and I'm just gonna keep going. Let's get into things now. This is more the Bible study night. Okay, doesn't mean there's no apologetics. What it does mean is that we're going on in Matthew. So this is more exegetical study with some application, and then where apologetic issues come up, I try to, deal with those in light of the text. But this is more like a book study. So I like to say that Wednesday Night Live, that's what I feel like calling it. Wednesday Night Live is our big apologetics, and then tonight is our Matthew through Jewish eyes study. And hopefully you're getting as most through both of them as you can. So I've got that pulled up, and I'm going to bring the PowerPoint up. Now the PowerPoint is available to anybody the day of, and if there are any charts or diagrams that I've specifically used, those are available to everybody the day of. Now, this Matthew study didn't require a lot of diagramming, so there aren't any real diagrams with this. But if we're dealing with some knotty Hebrew issues, however, if you give me just a second, I'm going to reach over and grab something, because I have a show and tell for you tonight. And I just got to reach it. Okay. Sorry about that. I had almost forgotten. I have a special show and tell that's part of Matthew tonight. You're going to see something really neat that's talked about in the text. And I'm going to actually put that up for you. So you're going to see a little bit of Matthew tonight. And so that will be that'll be kind of fun. And so I'm kind of looking forward to that. And that will enhance our study with live sort of exhibits. Isn't that cool? And you may have seen these things, you may not, but that's okay. It's always good to get a visual. And so I'm going to actually pull out something and explain what it is and show you how it fits in with Matthew's study. So let's get going here. Jesus' authority over the emblem of death. Now, when you look at things like the holiness laws and stuff, what you're looking at is those things had certain meanings. And so it's not always the things themselves, it's how they fit into what God was trying to convey. When we get into the text, we're going to see an issue around blood and purity, because the life of the flesh is in the blood, and God gave it to the Israelites upon the altar as atonement for their souls. And so the shedding of blood was associated with death and with atonement. A life was given, not a human life, okay, but life was given because the wages of sin is death. And so God, in order to bring home the awfulness of sin, has this sort of image. And so while blood represents life, the shedding or spilling of blood represents the loss of life or death. So if we say someone's life blood was shed, we mean that they died. If we talk about war in terms of the shedding of blood, we're referring to the fact that death occurs. And so blood was associated with atonement, and the shedding of blood was associated with atonement, but it was also associated with the fact that if your life's blood was shed, you were dead. How's that for a little rhyme tonight? And so that's why I'm talking about the emblems of death. The shedding of blood provided atonement in the case of the sacrificial system by virtue of the life that was in the blood and the death that ended up occurring for sin. So we're in Matthew 9:18 through 21. It's going to be a very interesting study, so stay, because you're going to see some things I hope that will connect other parts of the Bible for you. Uh, if you have your cell phone, you could just open up your software. By the way, if you have Logos Bible software, it's also available on your phone. And I'll let you a sneaky little trick. When I'm in church, I have my Logos Bible software set so that there is a Greek and a Hebrew Bible downloaded, and you can have the English Bible and the Greek or the Hebrew if you happen to read those. And so while my pastor's preaching, I've got the Hebrew or the Greek, depending on where he's at, and I'm looking along. So I don't know if that's really exciting to him, but that's just another statement. We're in Matthew 9, 18 through 22. Now you're going to have three miracles here that are going to be grouped together by Matthew. And as I'm looking at those, okay, we looked at Jesus being questioned about fasting. Then you have the two miracles we're going to look at here, because there's sort of an interruption of one miracle and another occurs. Then you're going to have two other miracles. Then what you're really going to have is a summary statement about Jesus's Galilean ministry, and then his statement to the disciples. So we're not there yet, but I wanted to create this backdrop. We've seen Jesus doing his miracle ministry around the Kinneret, or what's known as the Sea of Galilee. The Kinneret is the word for harp. And if you look at the Sea of Galilee, it has sort of a harp shape. And so in ancient days, it was known as the Kinneret, but the area was also known as the area around Galilee. And the way this ends up working is that the River Jordan starts in a place called Banis, up there, and really the waters come out of, or are the headwaters that are connected with Mount Hermon. Remember, there's snow that melts. That water goes down into the Sea of Galilee, collects a little there, but the Sea of Galilee has an outlet to it, and the Jordan River kind of goes down. So you have the river go in, then you have the Jordan, and then it all empties into the Dead Sea, which has no outlet at all. And so that's kind of the way it was. And I remember actually being on the Sea of Galilee. If you go to Israel, they have what's called Galilee excursions, and they take you on a boat the style of what Jesus and the disciples would have traveled. And you're actually out on the Sea of Galilee. Now, you don't want to be there when it storms. But it was a nice calm day. It was early in the morning, and so we were early in the morning on the Sea of Galilee. Our my friend, who also ran the tour, arranged to have communion on the Sea of Galilee, and that was a really great experience. And so that's the area that Jesus is ministering around. And so let's just pick this up and look at it. Verse 18, while he had spoken these things to them, behold, a ruler came and worshipped him, saying, my daughter has... I'm going to read it from my Bible first. Ruler came and saying to my daughter has just died, come and lay your hand on her and she will live. And Jesus rose and followed him, and so did the disciples. And suddenly a woman who, I want to see how far we go, had an issue, a flow of blood for 12 years. Your Bible may say issue of blood. That's just Old English. So don't let that fret you. A flow of blood for 12 years came from behind and touched the hem of his garment. And she said to herself, if only I may touch his garment, I shall be made well. And Jesus, we're at 22, turned around and he saw her and said, be of good cheer, my daughter, your faith has made you well. And the woman was made well that very hour. Now I separate that from the other miracle. Even though Jesus is in the process of going and doing a miracle, he is stopped by a woman who had an issue of blood. This is sort of a ministry interruption. Other gospel accounts detail this a little differently, but this is the Matthewan account. Okay. Now you need to understand what this issue of blood or flow of blood did for this woman. The law was very specific about this, and so I'm putting up the law in Leviticus 15:19 through 24. If a woman had a discharge, and the discharge was from her, and the discharge from her body is blood, she shall be set apart 7 days, and whoever touches her shall be unclean until evening. Everything she lies on during her impurity shall be unclean. Also, everything she sits on shall be unclean, and whosoever touches her bed shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean till evening. Whoever touches anything that she sat on shall wash his clothes and bathe in water, and he shall be unclean till evening. If anything is on her bed or anything which she sits on, whatever she touches, he shall be unclean until evening. And if a man lies with her at all, so that her impurity is on him, he shall be unclean 7 days, and every bed which he has lied on shall be unclean. This is Leviticus 15:19 through 24. Now, this is the code for the priests that they were to teach the people in terms of ritual holiness. What is the issue with this? Our friend the cosmic skeptic would find this stuff horrible, right? Because he doesn't understand what's going on here. Blood served a very important purpose in atonement, and the shedding of blood for sin provided atonement by reason of the fact it represented life, and its shedding represented death. Ritual holiness was important because it was a tool for teaching moral holiness. So God wanted to teach them about holy and profane, and he does it through these ritual laws. Now, what the problem with this woman is, she can't touch anything. She can't be around the community because she's continually having this problem. This isn't a cyclical problem. Now, I mark these not for children, okay? Not because I'm ugly and I want to cuss and stuff, but because we're going to talk about some adult topics here. I want to do it sensitively, but I think all of us know some basic biology, and normally this would be a problem for a woman about every 28 days, give or take. But for this woman, she's been constantly having this problem. She's continually unclean. No one can touch what she's touching. No one can touch her. She can't be around the community because anything she sits on is going to render somebody unclean, and a lot of somebody's. And so she's basically in a position of being ritually unclean continually, ostracized from the corporate worship of Israel and from the community. She's not going to have this great reputation. Let's be around her. And so this woman is lonely, excluded, not to mention the discomfort involved in this. I can't answer for that directly, but the gals will understand, and the guys will just have to take my word for it. And so she's got a terrible problem on her hands, and she can't seem to get it cured. And so she's kind of like a leper here. She's outside the society. This poor woman is suffering with a physical ailment that renders her unpure, so she's separated from the corporate worship of Israel. Plus, she's really kind of an outcast. Wow. Now, I'm going to give you some more background you may never have thought of. And I didn't think much about this, but I've taken you to 2 Samuel 11 through 1 through 4. Now, why did I do that? Because we've all read about Bathsheba, but have you ever wondered why she was bathing on the roof? Let me read this to you, and let me place this in the background of this whole thing about purity laws and the mikvah. By the way, that's what Orthodox Jews refer to this as. The Orthodox or ultra Orthodox still practice this. When a woman is in that way, she is expected to go to a mikvah bath. And the Orthodox will even have the man sleep in an entirely different room as his wife during that time period. And so this is still a big deal for those who try to practice the minutia of the law. And so you have mikveh baths that used to be very present. And so that was a big deal. So the purification of this allowed a woman to enter ritual worship, to be around people again fully. Now let's read 2 Samuel 11, 1 through 4 with this in mind. It happened during the spring of the year, at the time when kings go out to battle, that David sent Joab and his servants with him and all Israel, and they destroyed the people of Ammon and besieged Rabbah. Now let's just stop here. I do want to make a point. I had to do kind of a David monologue when I was doing preaching. They had us do like performance preaching. I am not necessarily Sir Laurence Olivier, but I guess it was good enough. At the time when kings go out to war, there was it's almost like saying in Vermont, people wouldn't war during the winter. Okay. And it would be normal for the king to go out with his people during battle. But David stays back and sends the people, and he stays. Now, he's putting himself in a place he wouldn't normally be, and probably shouldn't be. The Ammonites were not necessarily Israel's friends, and they created some problems. David remains in Jerusalem. Now, it happened one evening when the king is not out to war, where he probably should be, that David rose from his bed and walked on the roof of the king's house. Now, why is that? Because much like here in Arizona, you don't need a slanted roof in the desert. Rain, if it comes, will come very hard, will drain, but you don't have any snow problems like Vermont. And so what you have is the parapet. You'd have a flat roof, and the law commanded that something be put around that so that people didn't accidentally fall off. And so you had this flat roof, and David's having some trouble sleeping, a little bit of insomnia that night, and he walks the king's house, and he's up on top of the roof, up there, and he's looking down, and he sees a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful to behold, so David sent and inquired about the woman, and someone said, "This is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite." And David sent messengers and took her, and she came to him, and he lied with her because she was cleansed from her impurity, and she returned home. Now notice the words cleansed from her impurity. What impurity? Well, that normal cycle. She had just taken a mikveh bath up on the roof. Now you say, wait a minute, that's not cool in the moonlight, right? Understand that people did not have bathrooms with baths in those days. So, what would happen is you generally wanted a large flat area for a bath. And so, this is what's going on here. Now, one could question, her timing, but it appears as though it's late night. She didn't think she'd be much seen, and she had to purify herself according to the law. And so she goes ahead and does this, and it creates problems because David's looking where he shouldn't be looking. And so you can see how this purification thing plays into an incident in the Bible that you probably never thought about. And I didn't think about it until I read the words, "For she was cleansed from her impurity," and made the connection. So there's some background for you. She touched the corner of his garment. Now, really, she didn't touch the corner of his garment. Now, this is where it gets really cool. So this is show and tell time, and I hope you all can end up seeing this. I'm pulling this out. This is my grandfather's prayer shawl. It was handed down to me. It's an Eastern European Jewish prayer shawl. I actually took it to Sunday school. I'm going to try to get this set. Eastern European Jews do not have the tachelet or the blue because it was felt that when the temple was destroyed, that needed to be mourned. So this was my grandfather's, and it was passed on to me, so you have a rough idea how old this is. And why am I doing this? Because I want you to see what a tassel looks like. This is a tassel. This is on the corner of the garment. Now, the Greek word there, which I placed up there, okay, krespiridon, does not mean corner. Okay, and better translations do that. It actually can refer to fringe, and I put that up there. This is out of W. Andrew Smith Clothing, the Lexham Theological Workbook, which is part of the Logos Library. So some of this background is in these resources, okay? And he says very clearly, the Mosaic Law required a Jew to adorn himself or her a cloak with 4 tassels. Each of these tassels is on one of the garments. In the Gospels, the tassels appear on the cloak of Jesus. Sick people touched his tassels and were healed. The tassels appeared in elongated form on garments of the scribes and Pharisees. Now, he might think that my tassels are a little too long and I'm being showy. This is quite a garment, okay? Also, that Jews will sometimes have an undergarment, because originally the prayer shawl was supposed to be worn all the time. This is worn under. This is called a talit katan. And so here's the tassels on this. Okay, this is in a little less shade. Okay. And that's what the woman grabbed onto. Yep, that's what the woman actually grabbed onto. And so you can see if Jesus was walking along, I can't put this on because it'd take a few minutes to do this correctly. Okay. But this would be hanging down. And so that's all she had to do is grab one of the corners of this and grab onto it. Now, what this would do, it would render Jesus impure ritually. Okay, under normal conditions, it would render him impure ritually, because she's just touched his garment's touching him, and so technically, according to the law, he would be rendered impure, but that's not what's going to happen, because Jesus, as the Lord of death and the emblems of death, and the one who is himself totally pure and clean, can render the impure pure instead of having the impure render him ritually impure. So this is kind of exciting stuff. Now, why the corner? You know, why not really just grab the edge? Why do this? Well, I want to go ahead and show you in just a second. Now, to show you this, I need to show you how the Greek word relates to the Hebrew word. This is really cool. Because what we have here, and you should see it, may be a little hard to see, but I'll help you with it, is that the Greek word can be translated one of 2 ways in the Hebrew. Both of these are used. One is tzitzit, which is what Jews call those fringes. They call them the tzitzit. The other, okay, is the word for wings, and it can mean extremity or corner thereof. Kanaf, okay? And so that Greek word means both wings or corner and refers to the seat at the same time. Now, this is going to help you with this cool thing. And don't miss it, because this is really neat. If you're tuning into the study, you tuned in at the exact right time. Because, see, this background will help you understand why she grabbed the fringes. What is she thinking? Why the tassel? Malachi 4:2 says, "But as for you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness will rise with healing in his wings, and you shall go forth and grow fat like stall-fed calves." Now, what is going on here? This is so neat. How is Messiah gonna have healing in his wings? He's not a bird. Nor is this figurative, because there's a perfectly good word for Hebrew hands called yadah, Yada or Yadayim is the way I remember saying, because my grandfather would always talk about, washing my Yadayim, washing my hands, making sure they were clean. Because that was part of ritual cleanliness too. You shouldn't come to the table with non-clean Yadayim. So he would ask me whether I washed my Yadayim. When my kids were young, the Hebrew word for eye, anayim, I would say anayim lo Yadayim, eyes not hands, for don't touch. And so what's going on here is, it's not that Messiah will have healing in his hands, but what's really neat is Messiah had healing in his wings. Because he did not become impure when the woman touched him. He purified her of her illness and her ritual uncleanness. Now, I mean, that's worth the price of admission as far as backgrounds. And so Jesus gets interrupted. The woman grabs his thing, and that's why she grabs it. Faith is believing the word of God and trusting the character of God. She had the idea he was the Messiah, and she would know Malachi 4:2. And so she grabbed the wing, the fringe, believing that Messiah could heal her. And that's why I said, faith is believing God. And so I went and I looked up wings, and it says the corner or outer edge or extremity of a garment, skirt, and that's just further proof. The skirts of a manual, a kanaf, and then the word for mantle. Okay. This guy goes into Orientals being accustomed to wrap themselves in their mantles, and the expression is used for the edge of a bed covering, but that's just additional information. It doesn't take anything away from this really neat point. It's just emphasizing it. Now, when she does that, who told him? Now, one of the other gospel accounts talks about him feeling the power leave him. I'm not going to spend a lot of time with that because Matthew doesn't use that sort of language at this point. But Jesus is aware of what she did. And he said, "Be of good cheer, daughter, your faith has made you well." And the woman was healed from that very hour. And notice the language there. So where does this take us? Does this mean that anyone who touches my prayer shawl is going to instantly be healed? Absolutely not. Don't try that at home. The only thing you're going to get if you pull on my prayer shawl is my prayer shawl is going to come off, and I might not feel so great about it. That's not going to happen. Let me make a few points here, and I hope I don't get anyone too out of sorts. First of all, if you go to the last point, God can heal any way he wants to if he chooses. I don't disbelieve in healing. Okay? But here's the thing I want you to know. Everything Jesus did, you can't do. Don't try to ascend into heaven. Don't go into a graveyard and try to raise the dead. Everything Jesus did, I can't do. Jesus was showing signs to Israel that he was indeed the Messiah. It was the authentication of his messianic office. It wasn't just a magic show. It wasn't to go ahead and have people follow him, although they did want the goodies. A lot of people want the goodies that God gives without wanting God. Our friend last night would be, who we critiqued, would be an example of that. They want the goodies, but they don't want the giver. Jesus wasn't just doing a magic show. He was authenticating his messianic office. Jesus indicated her faith is the agent, indicating her faith is the agent. And really, it doesn't mean the cause. And I'm trying to differentiate. It's the channel through which, if she did not have the faith, she would not have grabbed the corner of his garment, and she would not have been healed necessarily. She wasn't healed because of her faith. She was healed through her faith. Now, that's very important for us to understand. There are those in Christendom who are dear brothers and sisters, but they feel that faith itself is a act that guarantees your healing by God in some miraculous fashion. God can do that, but your faith is not a meritorious act that guarantees you healing, and your lack of faith does not keep God from healing you. Okay? If I'm not sure God's going to heal my head cold, it doesn't mean I have to live with it forever. I say this because I remember an incident, reading about an incident with Johnny Erickson Tada, if you know that name, where someone told her if she just believed hard enough, her paralysis would leave her. I think that can become cruel for in certain instances. So I will pray that God heals somebody. I will pray even that God would do extraordinary things if he so chooses. But I will not tell people that their faith heals them or doesn't heal them, because it's God who heals them or doesn't heal them. And I don't want to confuse my faith with the one whom is the object of that faith. But what about the apostles, Jeff? Didn't they heal people? Yes, they did. But I'm not the Apostle Paul. The apostles also did their signs in order to authenticate the fact that they were from Jesus. By doing Jesus stuff, by demonstrating the signs of the king, they were indicating that they were his special ambassadors. Now, special in one way, because we're all, anyone who's an ambassador, who's a servant of the kingdom, is a special ambassador. But they were special because they were at the formation of the church, and God was going to build on their revelation. So why should I believe Paul's letter to the Corinthians if I'm from Corinth? Because Paul did the signs of an apostle. I mean, who am I to trust Paul? Because Paul exhibited the markers of an apostle who was giving scripture to the church. So that authentication was necessary so that the revelation would be accepted. Do you see what I'm saying here? There's another little bit of a rhyme, right? And so that's why that was there. So I'm not harshing on anyone's healing, but I'm saying that Jesus's miracle here is unique, and it serves a unique purpose. I'm just going to mute this for a sec. Just give me a second here. Okay, you should be able to hear me again. Make sure you can. I had something I had to take care of for just a split second here. Um, and so that's where I want to be careful. And I love my charismatic brother and sister in, but and I'm not lumping everyone in the same thing, but sometimes people take things too far. And I want you guys to maintain a biblical balance. I believe that truth is balanced, and the truth of the Word of God is balanced. And so I'm always looking for the balance, and I just want to avoid imbalance. And so that's why I stuck that up there. You'll notice the little cartoon guy. Um, so I'm going to go here. Let's talk about Jesus's authority over death, which is going to be demonstrated over and over again. First of all, remember that Jesus was delayed. I don't like ministry interruptions, but sometimes ministry interruptions are ministry opportunities. And I have to sort of get used to that because I'm a pretty structured person. And so Jesus was delayed. Now, let's start talking about the situation here. Now, we had gotten to 22. Let's look at 23 through 26. When Jesus came into the ruler's house, he saw the flute players and a noisy crowd wailing, and he said, "Make room, for the girl is not dead, but sleeping." And they ridiculed him, and when the crowd was put outside, he went in, took the girl by the hand, and the girl rose. And the report of this went out all into all that land. So let's take a look at what's going on here. Jesus finally makes it to the ruler's house, but late. The ruler is traditionally understood to be Jairus. Okay? Earlier we saw that Jairus, the leader, fell at the feet of Jesus and begged him to heal his daughter who was at the point of death. Let's talk about what a synagogue leader was. Jairus had position, and I put the Greek up here so that you can actually see it. It's composed of two words, arche, or archai, which is the idea of head or ruler. Okay, we talk about archetype. Okay, we use it in some English words. We even use the word arch enemy, or, chief, or ruler of, or first among, and synagogos. Okay, and that's the word that synagogue comes from, and it itself is actually of two Greek words, sun, agogos, and so it has the idea of gathering together. Now, it's the equivalent in Greek. It has the same idea that the word kohel has, which is translated in terms of the church, in terms of the word ecclesia, the called out. But this is a ruler. Now, what role would he serve? Well, he's not a rabbi. He's not an officiant. He's the one that made sure the practical matters of the synagogue were taken care of, and that everything was set in order, and that everything was procedurally sort of followed. So he's the guy that is kind of the administrator over the synagogue, and this is a position of authority. And so I stuck this up from Lo and Nida, Greek English Lexicon of the New Testament, United Bible Society. Printed version is available. Logos version is available. And when I pasted this in, guess what? The citation went in perfectly. And so that's where I got this from. Okay. Just some of the stuff that I do. 28:18, remember that he worshiped him. That's way back at 18. The word there is the word we get prostrate from, proskuneo. Now, what I did was, well, great, what does that mean in Hebrew? Ishtachavu is a very old word for worship in Hebrew. And this is the word the Septuagint translates for the basic lemma for proskuneo. Okay, and it's a very old word, and it's the one that's used the most for this. There are two other words, and I want to mention them. One is the word for servant, which is sometimes what proskuneo was translated. The other is the word to kiss. Now remember Psalm 2? Okay, 26 times this word actually is used of kiss, as in kiss the Son, in the idea of doing homage. You're going to see that when Abraham bows to the ground, you have that hishtachave or hishtachavu. I mean, that same basic root. And it's a very old word in Hebrew. And really what it says is the leader of the synagogue is worshiping. Now, I find that fascinating when you're talking about Muslims. Did Jesus ever claim to be God? Well, he accepted worship, didn't he? Isn't that interesting? That's blasphemous if he wasn't God. No Jewish person would do that, and no Jewish person in Jewish society would be accepted to do that. Jesus ends up accepting worship. So, I want to just point out that although the Jewish leadership did not accept Jesus, that doesn't mean there were no Jewish leaders that recognized who he was. So you can't say that no Jewish leaders accepted Jesus. You can't say all Jewish leaders rejected him. You can say officially the Jewish leaders accepted him, and the majority of the leaders did not accept Jesus, and the Sanhedrin, the ruling body, did not accept Jesus. But there are exceptions. And what Matthew shows us is that while there was official rejection for Jesus, not all the leadership of Israel did not recognize him. So while he is going to highlight the lack of response to Jesus by the Jewish leadership, he's also going to go out of his way to point out some exceptions to that lack of acceptance, so that it doesn't give the idea that basically all and exclusively all the leadership rejected him. Notice the crowd's reaction. Now, what you need, you're going to understand a little more about the crowd in just a minute. Jesus came into the house. You have flute players and a noisy crowd. Jesus makes this incredible statement. She is not dead, but only sleeping, or but sleeping. Now, death was viewed as a kind of, sleeping was viewed as a sort of death-like state, in that even Paul uses it as a metaphor for death, because we're not physically conscious. The person isn't moving around, and it looks somewhat similar. And so death can be used as a metaphor for sleep, but don't lose sleep over it, because death is also a gift from God. But looking at the person, not having them move, they're not conscious. And so Jewish people have this thing where, and I've done it, I don't mind doing it, thanking God for, in a sense, returning their soul, giving their consciousness back. Okay, and there's a little prayer in the morning that just thanks God for, giving me back my consciousness. I really treasure sleep. As someone who suffered from insomnia, I really know the beauty of sleep. And so don't take sleep not as a gift. In fact, the Bible indicates that he gives sleep to his beloved in Psalms. But you need to understand that when these people heard this, they thought this was the biggest joke on earth. Jairus is causing, we are mourning this girl as dead. She isn't waking up. She isn't going anywhere. And then Jesus says, make room, for the girl is not dead, she's only sleeping. And they're like, you got to be kidding me. We know what sleep looks like. We tried to shake her a little. She didn't move, and she don't look real alive to us. You got to be absolutely, this is a crazy, oh, this is the crazy rabbi from Galilee. No one, would think this. He's got to be mad. When the crowd was put outside, he went in, took her by the hand. The girl arose, and the report spread throughout the land. Now, let's just take a look at this. Why are there all these crowds? Because there were professional mourners. See, you paid people to mourn you. I'm not sure I'm going to get a huge crowd at my funeral, but in the ancient days, in order to guarantee there were many showing sorrow, in other words, affirming the worth of this person. Look, she's deeply loved. Can't you tell she's deeply loved? Look at the crowd that's here. Professional mourners would be hired. I mean, how's that for a job? Okay, and so you have these flute players that were hired to play dirges, which are sad songs, and the noisy crowd wailing. Okay, and the professional mourners were supposed to be loud and look really upset, and they were supposed to look at, she was deeply loved, and the town came out, and she's being mourned. And so, how do these professional mourners feel about maybe getting less than their full pay, or being dismissed early from their job? I mean, Jesus is putting them out of work, in a sense, not because he doesn't care about them, because he's going to do a great miracle, and they don't really want to lose the money. So not only is there just a basic, he's got to be crazy, but there's even an economic incentive working here. And people are people. We like to eat. I've been in ministry a lot of years, and people will talk to me about faith living and all of that. And, my big joke is, I may be spiritual, but my creditors are not. And so these guys may get less pay, and their party's being wrecked here. They were paid to do all this mourning and flute playing and dirgifying and all of this stuff. And so there's your crowd. Okay, and I did point out they thought he was crazy. There's the Greek word for ridicule, by the way. If you ever want to know how to say ridicule in ancient Greek, there it is, right there for you. Kata kategeleo. Kategeleo is to make fun of. I mean, they're mocking him. I just want to be real clear. It isn't the crowd's faith that Jesus is worried about. It's Jairus's faith and acceptance, and there's the point, okay? They are a distraction. They are a problem. They are an unbelieving distraction, and so they need to be removed. They don't get to see the miracle because they are just a problem, and they are not willing to believe. And you know what God wants from us is faith. And this is really hard for me sometimes because I like things spelled out and in neat little packages, and God continues to work with me on this. And boy, this is a long process. I'm glad he's a patient God because I'm not necessarily a quick learner. But the reality is what God wants is trust. By the way, that's why in a future broadcast we'll talk about the hiddenness of God. At least that's what I plan to do. Is it a problem? Why doesn't God just display himself? Come down and say, I am God in blazing fire. Why not do that, atheists will say? Because what God wants is faith, and if he was to do that, people would not be believing by faith. In a sense, it would almost be like coercion. And so Jesus puts the crowd outside. You don't need to be here. And then he goes in and takes her by the hand. Who gets to see all this? Well, the report will get back to them, but they don't get to witness the miracle. They believed not, so they received not. Of course, Jairus gets his daughter back. The woman gets healed. Isn't that neat? So let's start to draw a few conclusions here as we kind of round things out, and then I'll put up the slide and I'll see if I can grab that PDF. And I can't post that, but I'll post it in the comments there. And I'll also post it maybe in the chat if I can grab it real quick as far as contact information. And just post it right in there for you. Some conclusions. Jesus' authority is the basis for our authority as we minister our gifts and abilities for his glory. Why do I have authority to go out conceivably tomorrow, God willing, and do First Friday for a few hours? Because Jesus gives me authority. Okay? My authority is based on his authority. He grants me authority. The King grants me authority to use my gifts, further his kingdom, and be part of his work. Isn't that wonderful? Jesus' authority means the believer does not have to be under domination when in spiritual warfare or personal trial. Now, here's the way I would look at it. I don't go twisting any part of the devil at all. I just don't do that. The Lord rebuke you, and I have the authority to go ahead and say that. Jesus' authority means God's plans for your life will be fulfilled. Why? Because Jesus has all authority in heaven and earth. And what Jesus wants to happen will happen. The hard part with faith is keeping that in mind when the boat's leaking. And believe me, I'm saying this. I'm not saying I've got it down. I'm not saying I'm even good at it. I'm just saying it's true. It's true. It's scripturally true. And so I'm just affirming that truth right now. I'm not telling you, do not think that I've got this down. A lot of struggles, but I know it's true. But when my head knows, my heart sometimes really forgets quickly. And that's my problem. I've got a forgetful heart, and I've got a pretty good long-term memory. But getting it down there and keeping it from the head to the heart, man, that's where the blockage happens. Somewhere right above the heart, man, there's this glass pane that I have to deal with all the time. And if you're like me, that's where your struggle is too. But we're going to affirm the truth tonight. Jesus' authority means God's plans for you will be fulfilled. That's the beauty of that. So I'm going to try to pull the PowerPoint up that says annual conference and put that right in the thing there as we get ready to close up. Now, you know, I've got to deal with good old PowerPoint, which likes everything. And I'm going to see on here should be the RSVP. So I'm going to scroll down here and see where the contact information is. Here we go. And I'm going to hope the PowerPoint will cut and paste. Hardest thing to do on PowerPoints is copy. There we go. I'm going to put a number up here. There we go. That's the first part. The website I'm going to try to pull now by pulling off a thing. And I'll give you the website and the upcoming events in just a second here. Let me pull this off. Okay, and I'm going to go to the M2M network. Now I trust you can still see me. Sometimes Google does not like to share. And this is just one of those times, right? There we go. I'm just pulling this up so that it's not in your way so much. And I'm going to go to the M2M network. And hope that it actually sends me. Ha ha ha. Google doesn't like George's name for his thing. So I'm going to have to type it in. There it is. Ministry to Muslims Network. I'm going to go here. And there it is. Upcoming events. Let me see if I can bring this down a little bit here. That's September. Upcoming events, I'm going to go here and I'm going to put the URL if this shows up. I'm just making sure it shows up for you because he's got a lot of upcoming events. Sometimes they're not all listed. They should be all listed, but sometimes they're not all listed. Here we go. Here we go. I'm going to post this. It's in upcoming events so that you can go there. I'm going to put this up. That's the upcoming events. You're going to have to go down to the bottom of the page where it says annual mission trips. And it'll have the information there. If you're in Phoenix, I'd love to see you. I will let you know that there is a training on the 14th that I'll be speaking at before the actual outreaches on the 20th. So I'm going to go ahead and type in the training. It's at Meadows. I would just use the number. But let's see if I can get you some other information here as far as the training and the flyer. I cannot post PDFs in things here. So I'm going to just grab this. And here's the training session, if you're there, because I know at least one person who I'd love to see there. And there's the dates and stuff. Wow. Too many characters, guys. I'm going to see if I can cut some of the characters out. This is really hard because they said too much stuff. So I'm going to cut this in two. Okay. And I'm going to put the topics in the other section. Okay, and that's the way I'll deal with this. So I'll cut this and do it in two posts. And that way you can have both of them. Okay. There you go. That's all the information in 2 posts. There you go. And so that's all the information. And so that'll give you the information. If you are in the area, I'd love to see you there. And that about wraps us up for tonight with those conclusions, that information, and also the Strong Tower's there. So as far as upcoming events, the Fall Strong Tower 220 is there. If you're in California, that might be a better opportunity for you. And so I'm excited about that. I'm going to do one other thing here. If you are into, I'm going to see if I can do this real quick. Okay, I'm going to copy this. This is just if you're interested in the Logos matchups. You don't have to be, but that's just a promotion that they're doing. I'm going to put it up there. But that's just for those Logos Bible software folks. If you want to take a look at that link, you're free to. It's been great having you. It was a nice, restful study tonight. Last night had its blessings, and I'm excited about. It was good, and we ended up with double moderators here, so that's cool. And so I do want to thank Roxby for glad you came. If you came late, just go back. That's fine. Because I don't want anyone to feel that coming in late. I'm not like an exercise class. You don't have to stretch. And if you come in late, and just glad you're here. Here we go. Well, those are your freebies and resources and upcoming events. And I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to get ready to close out, but the board will still be open. Thanks, everybody who helped out yesterday. If you were here and you helped out, even if you weren't an official moderator, you guys are great. And I'm going to just leave the board open, but I'm going to at least close the mini cam.